Hello, how's it going? For the past 12 years now, I've been building my own computers and have learned a lot along the way. Since doing my first build, I've learned things that, looking back, would have been useful to know and would have helped me make some better decisions when it came to choosing my hardware that very first time. So that is why I am making this video, to equip those of you that are wanting to build your very first gaming computer with the knowledge that I feel will help you get the most bang for your buck when it comes to choosing what I call the core components of your PC. I'm sure to many of my subscribers that all the information I'll be presenting here is stuff you already know, and I just want to thank you for clicking on this video and watching it anyway. I plan to follow up this video with a series of videos and then put them all into a playlist here on my channel, sharing the things that I have learned as well as showing you step by step how to build your own custom gaming PC. Well, that does it for the intro, so if you're ready to get started, then let's go! Alrighty, so in this video we're going to be going over the core components of a PC. As a first-time builder, you may or may not know exactly what I'm talking about here. The core components are your CPU, motherboard, and memory. These core components are very important because they are quite literally the heart of your PC. Everything else is connected to these core components, and having a proper foundation to build the rest of your system on is something that I think is very important. When building a PC, the very first question I always ask myself is, what is this computer going to be used for? Obviously, we don't need an 8-core, 16-thread CPU if all we're going to be doing is browsing the internet.
Well, at least as of right now, when I'm making this video, we certainly don't.
With this video being about building a custom gaming PC, however, that question is already answered for us, so it's on to the next question I always ask. What is my budget for this build? Currently, you can build yourself a pretty decent 1080p gaming rig for around $500 US. Possibly even less if you're willing to use older hardware or some of the newer low-end stuff. If you're wanting to build a higher-end gaming PC, however, you're most likely looking at spending $1,000 US or more. With your budget in mind, you're ready to begin one of my favorite parts of building a PC: oogling over hardware that I cannot afford, and then picking out the best stuff that I can afford. The first component on my list is always the CPU, and the way I select a CPU it's admittedly very simple. I just get the best CPU that my budget will allow. As of the making of this video, the current king of gaming CPUs is the Intel i7-7700K, but it also currently costs $350 US. So if your budget permits going for the top of the line chip, then I say go for it, but if not, then you're going to, of course, want to choose a suitable alternative. Thankfully, AMD recently launched their Ryzen line of CPUs, which has given us more choices when it comes to gaming CPUs. At the time of making this video, if you're building a gaming PC, I would recommend buying at least a quad-core CPU. Whether you go with Intel or AMD is completely up to you, as right now at this moment in time, they both have fantastic quad-core, and in the case of AMD, even 6 and 8-core CPUs that offer great gaming performance at a decent price. One thing you should be made aware of as a first-time builder is that there are what is called locked and unlocked processors. When a processor is locked, it just means that you as a user cannot overclock that processor to a higher operating frequency, whereas a processor that is unlocked can be. If you're not familiar with the term overclocking, it simply means you can make your CPU run faster than its advertised speed of 3.6 or 4 gigahertz or whatever it may be. The obvious advantage to this is being able to get a little bit better performance out of your hardware. On Intel CPUs, the unlocked processors have the letter K or X after the model number. For example, the i7-7700K and the i7-6950X. In the past, AMD had what they called their Black Edition CPUs. Their current line of Ryzen CPUs, however, are all unlocked and capable of being overclocked. So who knows, in the future, we may not see locked CPUs anymore. I guess only time will tell. Anyway, the reason I mention this at all is because Intel charges a little bit more money for their unlocked processors than they do for their locked ones. So if overclocking your CPU doesn't really sound like something you're wanting to try at this point in time, then it may not be worth it to you to spend that extra money Intel charges for an unlocked chip. In fact, there's nothing wrong with taking the money you saved there and putting it towards a better graphics card or something. After selecting your CPU, it's time to choose a motherboard. What motherboard you buy will be partially determined by what CPU you choose, because you have to choose a motherboard that has the same socket type as your CPU. You'll notice in your CPU specifications, there's a spot that says CPU socket type. In the case of the 7700K, it slots into an LGA 1151 socket. AMD's Ryzen chips use the AM4 socket. Once you know the socket type you need, the next thing to look at is the motherboard chipset. This is where things can get a bit confusing, so I'm going to try and make things as simple as I can, hopefully. Depending on what chipset is on your motherboard will determine some of the other features and type and number of other peripherals like storage drives and whatnot that can be connected to your system. When building a gaming PC, I think the two biggest questions to consider when choosing your motherboard chipset is whether it has support for overclocking or not, and if it has multi-GPU support either through SLI or Crossfire. There are other things you may also want to look into, like what memory speeds are supported and whether or not it supports NVMe storage devices, among other things. The reason that I think it's important to know the differences between the various chipsets is because typically motherboards with greater feature sets cost more than motherboards that have a few less options. For example, let's say that you don't care about overclocking, or you don't plan on ever installing more than one graphics card. In my opinion, if you're not going to use those features, then there's no reason to waste your hard-earned money on a motherboard that has them. When it comes to finding the differences in chipsets, Google is your friend. You can simply search for a chipset comparison of your CPU socket and find which chipset it has the features that you want. Puget Systems is a great resource for this kind of information. Currently, they don't build AMD-based systems, but I was able to find this article on Tom's Hardware, which I'll link in the description, showing a side-by-side comparison of the different AM4 chipsets available and what features are included on each. Now, if you happen to be watching this video in the future and these platforms are now obsolete, I'm pretty confident that you'll be able to search for a comparison of whatever socket of motherboards your new CPU uses and find some similarly helpful graphs. So back to trying to keep things simple, let's take a look at this very nice graph from Puget Systems and compare the two consumer chipsets for Intel's current LGA 1151 socketed motherboards. And the two chipsets we're going to be looking at are the Z270 and H270 chipsets. There are what are called business chipsets that have their own stuff we could look at too, but to keep things simple for this video, we're just going to stick to these two consumer chipsets. But one thing I really like that Puget Systems has done here is gone ahead and highlighted all the differences between the different chipsets. When you look at everything here that's in black, they're all identical, and so everything here in red means that that's something that we might want to look at and kind of see what exactly the differences are. Now, as I mentioned a little bit ago, the two things I think are the most important to look at when building a gaming rig are support for overclocking and support for multiple graphics cards, which is what this one is right here. And as you can see, Z270, it supports overclocking, and it also supports multiple graphics cards. We can have 1, 2, or even 3. H270, on the other hand, does not support overclocking and supports only a single graphics card. So for someone building an LGA 1151 socketed system, if you want to overclock or have more than one graphics card, then Z270 is what you're going to need to get. However, if overclocking isn't really that important to you, and if a single GPU is all you're really going to be going for, then H270 might be a very good option for you because H270 boards are less expensive than Z270 boards. And if I'm being honest, in my opinion, you're always better off getting the single fastest GPU that you can afford rather than buying two slower graphics cards, because game developers don't always program their games to take advantage of more than one graphics card. So a lot of times you will get better performance out of a single, more expensive and faster graphics card than you would out of two less expensive and slightly slower graphics cards. The final thing to think about when choosing a motherboard is form factor. Form factor is just a reference to the size of the motherboard. Depending on what size of case you plan to build in will help determine what motherboard form factor you need. Currently, the most common sizes are ATX, which is your standard size motherboard, Micro ATX, which is slightly smaller, and then Mini ITX, which is the smallest of the three. There are other size boards out there that are larger than standard ATX, as well as boards smaller than Mini ITX, but they are quite a bit less common, so I'm not really going to worry about those right now. Obviously, knowing what case you're going to be building in is going to help a great deal with making this decision. Thankfully, websites like newegg.com have really great filtering tools that allow you to easily search for the case you've been dreaming about, whether it be tall or small. With your CPU and motherboard now selected, the final thing on our list of core components is memory, also known as RAM. When shopping for RAM, the first thing you need to know is what type of RAM does my motherboard support? You can find this out very easily by looking at your motherboard's specifications. The current standard as of today is DDR4, so that's what we're going to be looking for here in the video today. Now we need to decide how much RAM do we want in our new system. Currently, the bare minimum I would recommend for a gaming PC is 8 gigabytes. It's generally accepted that for superior gaming performance, 16 gigabytes of memory is ideal. But the nice thing about memory is that it's one of the easiest things in a computer to upgrade. So if you can only afford 8 gigabytes now, it's no problem to throw that in now, and then a month or two or however long down the road, add in 8 more. Now, you've probably noticed that memory modules come in a variety of different speeds. DDR4 ranges in speed from 2133 MHz all the way up to 4266 MHz. When it comes to computers, faster is always better. But honestly, when it comes to memory these days, there is very little to be gained in real-world performance by buying the fastest RAM available. LinusTechTips put out a video recently that I've linked in the description, as well as up in the cards that very nicely illustrates this point. What I like to do when buying RAM is just search for the capacity that I want. Let's say we're looking for two 8 gig sticks for a total of 16 gigabytes. I then look for the fastest kit within my budget that has the aesthetic that I'm looking for. As for brands, my favorites are G.Skill and Corsair, as I've had nothing but good experiences with both, but I know there are many other reputable brands out there, like HyperX, Crucial, and others. However, I've just never used any of them personally. Again, Google and YouTube are your friend here. If you see a kit you like and you're not sure about the manufacturer, just read the customer reviews, as well as check out reviews from other sources like tech review websites and, of course, other YouTube videos. One last thing I'd like to share with you about RAM before we move on to the physical installation process portion of the video is an experience that I had while I was building my very first PC. So I had just finished putting all the parts for my build together and was trying to install Windows. It would get about halfway done and then it would just fail. To make a long story short, after several failed attempts, I called up a friend of mine to come and help me, and he figured out that the problem I was having was a RAM read-write error. The RAM that I had installed at that time was from a manufacturer called PNY. And being my first ever PC build, what I didn't know was that not all RAM modules are compatible with all motherboards. Whether this was the reason for the problem I was having, we never found out for sure. I may have had some bad RAM, but running into this issue helped me learn that motherboard manufacturers actually test their motherboards using different capacities and speeds of memory from a pretty wide variety of different manufacturers and put together lists of RAM that has been confirmed to be compatible with their motherboards. And these lists you can find on the motherboard manufacturer's website, as well as in your motherboard manual. The manufacturers are of course unable to test every single possible configuration, so if there's a RAM kit that you're looking at buying isn't on your motherboard's compatibility list, that doesn't mean that it's not compatible. It may very well be compatible, however, your motherboard manufacturer just didn't have the opportunity to test it. That being said, RAM compatibility doesn't seem to be as much of an issue nowadays as I feel it was in the past, but at the same time, I feel that this is definitely something first-time builders should be aware of. And that is going to wrap things up for this video. I hope that you have enjoyed it and that the information has been useful to you. I really love building computers and doing what I can to help people out there that are new to this whole PC building scene. I plan to add more videos to my Beginner's Guide series in the near future that I hope will be equally helpful. If you enjoyed this video or simply learned something new, please click that like button before you go. And if you are not yet subscribed to my channel, I would ask you to please consider doing so. The button is just right down there. You know, just go ahead and give it a clicky. You know, a click, click, clickaroo, if you will. If you have a question or something that you'd like to say, express yourself freely in the comments. After all, that's what it's there for. Before I go, I want to thank you for spending some time hanging out with me today. It's been fun. I hope that you have a great day. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.